I'm running for Oceanside City Council District 3, and I welcome you to our brand new series this week. It's called Housing, Health, and What's on the Ballot. So this week's kickoff is we're going to start with our housing element of that. Health, housing. What is it this week, Venus? I am so stumped now. Give it to me.
Housing, health, and what's on the ballot.
Okay, so it is housing, health, and what's on the ballot. Okay, thank you for that. So I'm here with Elizabeth June, and let me tell you a little bit why I have her. I just had Venus Johnson, my campaign manager, this past weekend. We were on a Now is the Time, and it was talking about healthcare, Medicaid for All, which our campaign completely supports. And we are fast becoming advocates more publicly. I certainly have been one privately in my own space because I had to navigate not having health care for a great many years of my adult life. And because people have heard me talk about in my candidate statements about this tall, dark, and handsome man I married, if it wasn't for him, I would still be without health care, being a small business owner, being an independent contractor, as a producer. So there's a number of reasons, and I have so many friends that have been impacted, yes, by COVID-19, yes, but also have been impacted because of the healthcare system. And I'd like to introduce this wonderful, creative, talented, innovative artist, amazing human being friend of mine, who is a cancer survivor, and how she was able to navigate the system. And I want to let you know, she said something quite striking to me, that she felt, well, you know, Kelly, you have to be either really, really rich or really, really poor to get health care, and it should not have to be that way. So without further ado, I want to introduce Elizabeth June to the show.
Hello.
Hi, June.
Hello. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Venus. Thank you all so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to tell my story, my healthcare story, or health scare, as I call it, a health scare when you don't have health insurance. I am a cancer survivor. I had to make sure I got the official wording of it because I never can tell. I have invasive ductal carcinoma of the breast, because there are different types. I want to be sure that people know the type of breast cancer I had. Stage 1, thank God, early detection. I had a lump in my right breast, and I went to get it checked, a mammography, a mammogram. And this was like in December of 2018. I had it checked, and they said, we think it's benign, but 6 months from now, why don't you go and get it checked again? Now, my world kind of turned upside down. I was in a accident, a work-related accident. I am an actor. I am a yoga instructor. I am a whole lot of things. But as you know, a lot of actors have survival jobs. And on my survival job, I had an accident that involved my knees, my neck, a lot of parts of my body. And so I was on disability for a long time. Because I was on disability, I wasn't able to do the health insurance from the job that I had the accident. So I had no health insurance. So December 2018, they tell me, get it checked again in 6 months just to be sure. We think it's benign, but we still see some stuff in there. Got it checked again in June of 2019. I was diagnosed with cancer in July of 2019. So now here I am, no health insurance. I didn't even have a job because I had been on disability from the work-related incident before. And I was living in North Carolina. Prior, the work-related incident happened when I was in Los Angeles. That's where you and I have, we've known each other originally from New York. Lord, Kelly, how long have we known each other from New York? And then in LA, we knew each other there. So anyway, long story short, diagnosed with cancer, July of 2019, no health insurance. I had to go to a Lincoln Community Health Center, which is here in Durham, North Carolina. They referred me to a wonderful program called Project Access of Durham. Project Access is a an organization, nonprofit organization that partners with various doctors in this area. Thank God I was living in Durham, North Carolina, because Duke Cancer Institute, which is one of the top cancer institutes in the country, almost the world, is like 10 minutes from my house. They partner with Project Access. Project Access told me, made an appointment for me to go and meet with my oncologist, my surgical oncologist. Now, you would think it's something that's free. Oh, you may get like a medical student or whatever. No, I had the chief of staff. She was a female chief of staff surgical oncologist for breast cancer at Duke. This is how God works. No health insurance. The only reason I was even eligible for that is because prior to that I had been on disability, and prior to that I had not been working. You see what I mean? It's almost like I said, you got to be very rich or very poor to get good health insurance or good health care. Anyway, they put together my lumpectomy. So I had the lumpectomy in August of 2019. Then all the follow-ups. I did not have to have chemotherapy, thank God, because they caught it soon enough and they took out the lump, and they also did a lumpectomy, and also they took out lymph nodes from under my arm. I had to do 20 rounds of radiation. So you're talking about a lumpectomy that is thousands of dollars, no bill. I had to have 20 rounds of radiation, which is like maybe $10,000 a pop, no bill. I have to now, for the next 5 years, be on hormone therapy, that I have to take a pill every single day. The money that it would normally cost me per month for that medication, for that one pill a day, would have been $330 per month. No bill. I pay $4 for my medication a month. That's God. That is divine, as we mentioned before. I feel like I live in Canada. You know what I mean? But this is what I wish and pray for everybody. No one should have to die because they don't have health care, because they don't have health insurance. It's a health scare, really. Go ahead.
And if I can just jump in here, what I like, what you were also mentioning, the decision to have to make, and people think that, people who are collecting, welfare or some of these other social service programs, the kind of dilemma that people really do get into of having to wage, do you hear me? Wage between, gosh, I need this money, I need to go out and get more money, but at this time, I need to take care of my health. Right. So I have to sort of wage against, how do I keep my health care?
Yeah.
But then go and pursue whatever it is that you want to pursue. Because when we think about it, if you don't have your health, and I think if COVID-19 in this climate, if it has driven that point home, if you do not have your health, or if we don't support people in this manner about health, people will not be going to work because they will be sick, or people will be stressed, which then what happens when you're stressed? The dis-ease, the disease starts to set in, and it becomes this battle between, do I go for the health care, or do I go for a better job, or employment? And we should not have a system as a first world country where it's designed and impacted, where fabulous, wonderful, productive citizens happen to be sick and they have to make those decisions.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I'm so grateful to Project Access, and I tell people about this all the time. And Project Access is not just in Durham, it's in other parts it's been around since 1996. I didn't know that. I had to do some research on it myself. And they're in different parts of North Carolina, but there are programs like this around the country, but you have to search, you have to do the research on it, and you have to be eligible. I had to show them that I had been in Durham for 6 months. You know what I mean? I had to show proof that I had been there, because 6 months, and I literally had just made the mark, because I just moved to Durham in January of 2019, and by July 2019, you understand what I'm saying? That's all God. But there are other companies like this out there, but you got to do the research. But hopefully and prayerfully we'll be in a country where no one has to think about these kind of bills, because even I've spoken to other friends who have had cancer, and they had a big bill at the end of their treatments because very few health insurance companies cover all of cancer. That's why if I even tried to get a new insurance policy right now, they give me a hard time because they don't want people who have cancer because they know how expensive it is to have cancer. You understand what I'm saying? So even if I had health insurance, I would have a huge bill at the end of all of this with all of the treatments that I've had. I've had biopsies, bone marrow biopsies, several mammograms, you know what I mean? It's expensive. So this is what I say to everybody. Please, please vote for a candidate that has your best interest in healthcare for all in mind. I'm not going to say any names. I'll just say someone who cares about all of us to make sure we don't die, because there's no reason for someone to die with the type of cancer I had. Very early stage 1, early detection, but it could have gone that way because I would not have been able to pay for it.
And June, if you could let us know, you said a really good point, because there might be someone out there that might have some health concerns, and how do I navigate it? How did you find out about this particular, you said Lincoln Community?
Yeah, for me in Durham, it was called Lincoln Community Health Center, Lincoln Community Health Center. But they're not alone. There are centers like this all around the country, but you have to be eligible for it. So in other words, unfortunately, someone who does have health insurance or who does have a certain amount of money would not be eligible for it. You have to be below, the poverty line. And I was at that moment because of what happened to me with the accident before, you know what I mean? As far as not having a steady income. And what's so crazy about it, the year before, just because I'm an actor within our union, SAG union, if you make a certain amount per year, you are eligible for health insurance. I made $2,000 less than that. You see how close I was? So this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's not like I'm the kind of person who just didn't have a job and didn't. I had like 3 jobs. I was juggling, you know what I mean? But it didn't matter because if you get into an accident or something happens, you're out. You can't work. And so these are the kind of things I just recommend that, you could even go to projectaccessdurham.org and you can read up on them if anyone is watching and interested. If anyone's in North Carolina, for sure, look them up if you know of somebody who needs help and they don't have health insurance. But I promise you, almost any town in America will have some sort of center or health center for people who cannot afford regular health insurance, people who are not insured, and they will give you the information you need. But you got to search. You got to do the research. Yeah.
I think that's a good point. So you have to research. You can do an internet search. And what would they plug in for something like that, June? What would you say?
Cancer and uninsured. That's the only thing I would say. You know what I mean? Health, you know what I mean? Like health services for the uninsured, I would say, and whatever neighborhood that you're in, or whatever city you're in, whatever town, I would say that start there, and then you'll find a lot of information there.
Because in your case, I think it was it a friend of the family?
Yes, a friend of the family told me to try this certain center because they knew I didn't have health insurance, and they said, well, check out with this center and see what they say first. And that center referred me to Project Access. I would have never heard of it otherwise. So yeah, there are clinics and centers in every town, and sometimes people kind of look down their nose at those kind of places, but listen, they're the ones that give you the information. You know what I mean? It's their job to give you information on how you can get some sort of health care, even if you don't have health insurance.
Yeah, and I think it's important to also mention, and I've said this in other series that we've had, as there seems to be when you fall ill, or especially if you have something like a cancer or you HIV/AIDS, you have that virus, that there seems to be a stigma attached and nobody wants to actually speak the words out loud. And it's that, you got to ask so you can receive. I mean, we're both faith-based people, so we understand that. But even if you're not a faith-based person, whether you're agnostic or atheist or you just, whatever, speaking the words out of what you need, that kind of energetic vibratory experience of speaking out loud so that so you can receive. And I know that with cancer and HIV related illness, there's still in this day and age some kind of stigma attached, because even though cancer is not catchy, there's this, oh, poor you. So I just wanted to make sure that we say again, go out there, ask or do an internet search, speak it out, go and seek it, because there's opportunities for that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad you brought that up as far as stigma, because there are some, and I used to maybe have this feeling too, like, what did I do to bring this on myself? You know what I mean? So there's a thing of blame when a person has cancer. Like, well, what did you do? What did you eat? What did you not eat? What did you know what I mean? There's a blame thing that goes along with it. And I have to say, I love the oncology. I have 3 wonderful female oncologists at Duke. The surgical one who actually did the lumpectomy. Then I have a radiation one, the one that did the radiation process. And then I have right now a medical oncologist. That's amazing. And one thing I have to say, they really kind of answered my questions as far as, you didn't do anything to bring this on yourself. You know what I mean? You have dense breasts, and some women with dense breasts have a higher chance of getting, you know what I mean? I thought maybe I wore an underwire bra and brought it on myself, or maybe I used the wrong deodorant. You know what I mean? There's this deal of trying to, whatever. And my oncologist says, no, there's no evidence that you did any kind of deodorant that messed it up or did anything. You know what I mean? You didn't do it. So that has to be lifted, I think, in the community as well, for us to stop blaming people when they get sick. Because sometimes it's this thing of, how did you bring this on yourself? And sometimes it's just like, it could be the person who eats well and is, vegetarian. I'm not one, I'm carnivorous, but it can be a person who does all the right things and you can still get it. You know what I mean? So go ahead.
Yeah, and I also want to point out that, first of all, I talked about the talent of this woman. I mean, she's a yogi, she's a producer, she's a writer, she's an actress, she's a singer, she's an entertainer, she's a wife, she's a dear friend, she's a believer. She's definitely someone that has been and active in so many realms. And June, she played Harriet Tubman. I mean, all of the roles that have come to you as you get these fighting roles, have you noticed? So if you could just give people, if you go IMDb, Elizabeth June, we're going to put her information right now, her websites and such, but just give, like, you've been on these television shows, and what I tell people is working actors, and getting back to what you're saying about, she's poor and she's collecting the system. No. June has been a working actor, and she's been one of those actors that you see on television and you go, God, you look familiar, because all of these little shows. So just enlighten people just on some of your credits.
I'd be happy to. So I have been on Fresh Off the Boat, which is one of my favorite shows. On ABC, and I got to work with Constance Wu. I've been on Criminal Minds, which is on CBS, and I got to work with Joe Mantegna and their whole cast there. Joe Mantegna, first of all, he's just amazing. Can I tell you, at the table read, he came around and shook each one of our hands, those of us who were just co-starring that week, and introduced himself and everything. I'm just like, this man is amazing. And then, of course, one of my favorite roles was playing Harriet Tubman on Blackish. So I got to work off of Anthony Anderson, and he's another crazy one. All during the hallways and stuff, when I was going through wardrobe, he was like, Harriet, why, he was just hilarious. So I loved working with him. And then, of course, Kelly and our good friend Levy Lee, they referred me. As soon as I moved to LA, they were like, you better get over to the Roby Theater Company. You got to go and meet Ben Guillory. And I was like, okay, cool. Who's Ben Guillory? Then I look up Ben Guillory, and he's like Grady on The Color Purple, which is like my favorite movie of all time. So I was very, very happy to work with Ben and work with Kelly and Levy Lee at the Roby Theater Company, and I've been blessed to be able to do so. And then just commercials, like that's why people kind of think I have a familiar face, because I've done a lot of TV commercials for like Campbell Soup and Lens Crafters and most of the thing I did Comcast, which even though Comcast is kind of tricky right now, but I didn't know that at the time. So
And
yeah.
say that because the thing is, a lot of us as who have worked in the industry, whether we're producers behind or in front of the scenes, I also at a time had the SAG insurance. I had met the requirements twice, one on my own after a national commercial, because
Yep.
we entertainers, we love those national spots.
Yes, we
and
do.
say residuals. And then the other time, my husband at the time had gotten it because of, again, another commercial. But it's also a limited time. You also have to keep up a certain income level in order to maintain it. So when a lot of times in the business, it's feast or famine.
Yes.
So you're able to get it during the feast, but if then you don't have those number of commercial, COVID-19 happens, and then you're not able to even work. So this is why healthcare, for all is so important, because we need everybody in our society to be able to access, to have a productive society. And especially during times like this, when there's feels a little bit like a famine. I'm staying encouraged that we're going to get through this together. But during times like this, to have something like a system that we all can benefit from, because if we don't have healthy people, we're not going to have people being able to have high productivity. So I just want to say that. I also wanted to add that Jitters, June has a award-winning short film that she and her husband, they have a company called Silverlox Productions, and they have Jitters is a short film, went through festivals. June wrote it, she produced it with her company, she starred in it. Her husband Jason, shout out to Jason who directed it. So it's like, to know these productive people who end up getting a dis-ease, and that we want to make sure that we have people like June and her husband who are really creating the kinds of films we need to see more in the world, who are creating the kinds of work, their businesses and companies that support people. So this is why I definitely wanted to do the series for people like June. And also, let's talk about, okay, so you got this disease, you got the lump out, now you're cancer free, hallelujah. What can someone do to relieve stress, to help them with mobility issues? Well, June is also a yogi. So can you speak a little bit? And I'm glad that you are doing this, because I was trying to find when we work with you and your chair yoga for our military members. June is a true American, and I think that's also what needs to be said. We all are.
My breast cancer and the flag all in one.
There you go. And we want to do what we can to make this country even better. We live in an amazing country, and we, the citizens, are seeing it go a certain way. So this is what drove me out and said, not in my country. So Elizabeth had this wonderful program we were working on about chair yoga and mobility, and she was really concentrating on our veterans and military members, but also people who have mobility issues. Can you speak a little bit about that, June?
Yes, I can. And I want to thank you, Kelly, for kind of inspiring me to go ahead and create an online virtual program. What is called is Silverlox Yoga with June. Silverlox Yoga with June. And I have a Facebook page that you can go to, just do the little @Silverlox Yoga with June, and you can find it there. What I'm creating is something for limited mobility. I want to create just a 7-minute a day stretch for people who can't get down onto a mat, because sometimes you get down onto a mat and you can't get back up. So I do it in a chair, and or even on the side of a bed, because sometimes people can't even leave the bed. I get that, because this past year of recovering from cancer, of recovering from my radiation, recovering from the surgery and so forth, there were times when I could not leave my bed. But I had to still stretch. I had to still move the arms and do something that can help me from feeling tight and tense when I did finally get up and walk around. So I've created something called 7 at 7. It's a 7-minute stretch, 7-minute stretch at 7, sometimes 7 a.m., sometimes 7 p.m. And I've only been doing it for the last couple of days because Kelly was telling me when she invited me to be on the show, she was like, well, June, what program do you want me to promote? And because we're actors and there's no Hollywood right now and there's no Broadway right now, I didn't have anything to promote. So I was like, I better create something. And I did. So thank you, Kelly, for inspiring that. So what I'm doing basically is just every day at 7, just to give a little stretch, limited mobility. And then if you can do more, then you can do more. But if you can't even do that much, do only what you can do that day. Because the important thing is for us to breathe and stretch. If we don't breathe and stretch, we're in trouble when we try to get up after sitting down for too long, or even get up after laying down for too long. And you're feeling all these aches and pains, you've got to just breathe oxygen into the body. I call like oxygenating the body. And so I teach those who are watching. It's totally free. You can just tune in anytime. And I keep it on my page. So even if you miss it at 7, you can just watch it on demand. You don't have to watch it right at 7 when I'm doing it. But I do it a Facebook Live, and anyone is welcome to kind of join in and just follow along, because you have to have some sort of way of releasing all of this negative energy that we're watching on the news nowadays, that we're seeing on our phones. We're constantly looking down and working our fingers and so forth. So let's do some exercises for the fingers. Let's do some exercises for the face. Let's do some exercises to release those shoulders down away from the ears. So those are the kind of things that I'm encouraging. And even if you don't watch mine, watch somebody's on YouTube. It doesn't have to be watching mine, but find just 5 to 7 minutes a day of doing some sort of yoga stretch that is really going to help us through these difficult times.
And I want to thank you for pointing that out. I also, it was on HBO a couple of years ago, and here June can relate to this because I'll date ourselves here. It was Dick Van Dyke, because remember Dick Van Dyke from all the shows that we loved back in the day. And a couple of those same people, I think they had, forget some of the other older people of his ilk that were talking about getting older and what do they do. And one of the things they did mention, and I think it was Dick Van Dyke that said something like, come on, it's only 10 minutes, 10 minutes every day I get up and I just stretch. And I think it's really important how that helps. And even when I used to go to Coffee with the Cops, obviously we can't do it right now during COVID, because I wanted to make sure that I develop a relationship with our law enforcement community here in Oceanside. And one of the things I surveyed with them is like, what do you do for stress levels? Because we talked about this, and this is the irony about everything that's going on. We used to have something called our divine time.
Yes.
Back when I was still living here, I believe, and I would go to LA because all of my connections at that time was in LA, and we started this divine time. And that's, I think it was right around you were getting your certifications for some of the yoga that you were doing. And we were exploring just how it would be wonderful to have a program like that for our police officers, a place that they could go to just themselves and stretch and just to relieve stress. And maybe that might also help impact, because this is a stressful job, and especially during a time like this, but to have these little mini programs that you're offering and offering it to our police departments, as much as it sounds like I'm a little airy-fairy, but we have to do something to honor our police officers, to give them an outlet to relieve that. Do you remember that, June? We were talking about?
Very much so. And if you go, and if for anyone who goes to my Facebook page, you'll see the little sheet that I created where I was offering my services to go to any police precinct. And, like when they have a little room somewhere where, either before the person's shift or after their shift, if they just want to come in and just stretch for someone, stretch and breathe, meditate, whatever it is. Again, there may be some police officers who are like, oh no, that's just for girls. But if you go to my page, you'll see I've had some big manly guys, including James Lights Out Tony was one of my former yoga clients. So trust me, if you don't want to go to him and tell him yoga is girly, trust me. So that's the kind of thing. And I wish all yoga instructors would maybe kind of invite police officers to either come to their classes for free, or either we go to their precinct if the precinct will allow us to go in there and just do a quick little 5-minute chair yoga with those officers, you know, because it's important that our community, especially our community in this time, that we have a good relationship with the good police officers that are out there. And there are millions of them out there. We cannot get to this idea that all of any one group is bad. That's impossible. And that's also unfair to us, because those are the same people who think all of us are bad because of what a few people do. So we want to be able to bring those communities together. If we can bring those communities together, and if we can provide some kind of service, even if it's just a 5-minute yoga thing. I'm volunteering my services right now on your show, and I pray that other yoga instructors will do the same, and that we can really, really come together, breathe, meditate, and become unified. The United States of America. That's the biggest thing.
United States of America. And I think yoga is a universal language. It doesn't have anything to do with any of your background. It is access to all of us. And that's why I appreciate people like you who have gone through the certification programs, who know a bit about the body to help people breathe. I mean, something that I have learned, that it truly is in the breath. Whenever I just check in with myself and I feel myself rising, it's wonderful to have programs like you're offering. And we're running out of time, but I do want to mention that June and I also, we worked together many times in many different ways. But one of the ways we did work on, when we did live in New York, there was a play that we did called Shelter, Refugees of the American Dream. And it was we worked for a company called HAI, and I mentioned HAI before about going in and out of shelters and detention centers and such. And we got very inspired and encouraged by, this is the housing aspect of just the human aspect of who is in the shelter. And June, I have to tell you, I have encountered more than once in this campaign. I'm getting on my soapbox, I'll get off quickly. But in a forum, I literally had people say, other candidates in this district talking about the drug dealing, the drug addicts and those people and these unruly people that are out on the streets. And you and I have worked in the shelter system, single adult shelters, family shelters, women's shelters. We have worked in all aspects of shelters. And it's universal across the board. And I said before, and I said on air, I said, you know, we're only one natural disaster or one circumstance away of being homeless. And we really have to look at this crisis with more care than this contempt. And I just want to mention to you, because you have a story about when we presented this to the community, it really does affect how people say it. Do you want to say a little bit about that project we worked on?
Well, Shelter was so powerful for me because we talked about different aspects of the shelter. We talked about some characters that lived in the shelter. The character I played was Jesse, who actually lived on the outside. Now, Kelly, you, if I remember correctly, you were one of the writers of Shelter, one of the co-writers of Shelter, right?
That's right.
So and you guys kind of brought me in because one of the co-writers who wrote the Jesse character wasn't able to do it at that time. So I kind of came into this thing and I was just amazed at the response that we got from people who saw what we were doing. There were some people in the audience, people who even knew me, they were like, wow, where'd they get that homeless person on the stage? They thought I really was a homeless person on the stage. But that's good. That means I'm doing my job. I'm glad that happened. And I wanted to show the fact that these people, many of these people are so intelligent and so gifted and so, you know what I mean? It's like you said, one circumstance away, because not all of us have a family member that we can go and crash on their couch. And some of us do have family members like that, but we crash on their couch for maybe a week too long and we ain't gonna be able to crash there anymore. So next thing you know, we're on a bench. People don't realize how hard it is when you don't, and it's hard to even get a job when you don't have an apartment apartment, you don't have an address to write down on it. And if you don't have, because then they're asked, well, where do you live? You know what I mean? It's very tricky. A good friend of mine used to live in a shelter, and now he's out. He was able to get his, get himself, pull himself up by his bootstraps. He was able to get a job. He just had a little setback, and a minor setback, to where he had to live in a shelter for a while. But he's very intelligent, articulate. You know what I mean? It's heartbreaking, because not everybody has family or friends that they can just turn to and stay for an unlimited amount of time. You know what I mean? While they're trying to find a job, while they're trying to get themselves together. So it was eye-opening to me. I remember one lady had me crying. I'm in the scene, and she was doing a scene with me, because remember, sometimes with HAI, we used to do interactive role play. And she was a lady who lived in the shelter, but she was playing the social worker, and I was playing the homeless person. Honey, she had me crying, because she was so compassionate and so sweet. And so I was just like, oh, Lord, this is real. You know what I mean? So it was an amazing experience that I'll never forget, and I'll never look at homeless people the same way again, ever.
Same here. So that's why when I get on these forums, or I hear people talking about sweeping and cleaning out these areas, and I understand it's very in Oceanside, because it's Southern California. You lived here too. Yes, and you lived in LA, so you know the seriousness of the housing insecure crisis. It's literally in your face. And our campaign is doing, people like, we have this wonderful organization called the Oceanside Homeless Resource. We have lived experiences. These are programs that are really on the front lines. And so Venus and I have decided to do what we can to support these organizations and help them, since they're doing the work. And as you know, there's a lot of red tape. Do you have this permit? Do you have this? It's COVID-19. And it becomes almost like a choice of, yes, it's COVID-19, and there are people that don't have food. And so what do? We don't want to look like we're going against the system. We're trying to help it. So Venus and I are committed to trying to find ways to support those organizations to make sure that they are, into the fold. What can we do, to help those organizations? So June, I just want to say that we have been on this journey together for a long time, since 1999, I think. I mean, it's been a minute that we have known each other, and to see you go through some of the challenges that you have, and that here, by the grace of God, here you are, healthy, and now doing what you do best, helping others. So I see you. What is it again? Sawubona, right, Venus? Sawubona, which means,
right? Sawubona. What does that mean?
That means I see you. But it's not only that I see you, I see your ancestors, I see what you're doing. So sawubona to you, sweetie. I see you.
Sabubona. Thank you. Ashe.
Ashe to you, babe. So that's it for this particular edition. We have June's links in the website. I also encourage you to go. If it's not yoga, we also have Violeta. So Sarah, she's been posting on our site as well for some dancing. So let's get moving, Oceanside. Let's do yoga. Let's do all this stuff. Let's move through this time and onto a more harmonious collective. So thank you, June, for joining us. We're signing off.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.